In Lesson 05, Examples 4 and 5, you will learn how to find the reciprocal of a number and to divide fractions. Two numbers whose product is 1 are called multiplicative inverses or reciprocals. In other words, a number multiplied by its reciprocal is always going to equal 1. In our first example, 3/8, to get the reciprocal of 3/8, we just need to take the fraction and turn it upside down to be 8/3. Because when you go to multiply 3/8 times 8/3, you get 24/24, which is the same thing as 1. If you have a mixed number and you want to write it as the reciprocal, you need to first change it to an improper fraction by going times plus, keep the same denominator. So 2 times 5 is 10, plus the 4 extra is 14, and we're going to keep the denominator the same. Now once we have it as 14/5, we can then flip it around to make it 5/14. So the reciprocal of 2 and 4/5 is 5/14. For -3, we want to first write it as a fraction by putting it over 1, and then we're going to flip it around, and we have to keep it negative because the product is always 1, and a negative times a negative is a positive. So the reciprocal of -3 is -1/3. Now to divide fractions, we actually are going to change it to a multiplication problem where you multiply by the reciprocal. One way to remember it is with this poem, dividing fractions, easy as pie, flip the second and multiply. Or with the saying KCF, keep, change, flip, meaning you keep the first fraction as it is, change the division to multiplication, and you flip the second to its reciprocal. In the first example, 1/3 divided by 1/2, dividing fractions, easy as pie, flip the second and multiply. Or keep, change, flip. Now there isn't anything to simplify ahead of time, so go ahead and multiply the numerators. 1 times 2 is 2, 3 times 1 is 3. 2/3 is our answer. 3/8 divided by 2/3, keep, change, flip. 3/8, change, and flip to 3/2. Now in this one, there still isn't anything we can simplify ahead of time, so just multiply the numerators. 3 times 3 is 9. 8 times 2 is 16. In our next example, we have a mixed number, so before we can keep, change, flip, we need to make this an improper fraction. So that's the first step. And that's the place where some people will go wrong on this problem. They'll try to flip this before they change it to an improper fraction. 2 times 2 plus the 1 extra. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. So here's what the problem is. Now we can do keep, change, flip. 3/4 times 2/5. This is one where we can do some simplifying before we multiply because the 2 and the 4 can both be divided by 2. 4 goes into 2, or sorry, 2 goes into 4 2 times, and 2 goes into 2 1 time. Now multiply the numerators. 3 times 1 is 3. 2 times 5 is 10. Our last example, keep, change, flip. Again, we can simplify before beginning. 5 and 10 can both be divided by 5. 5 goes into 5 once. 5 goes into 10 2 times. I also like to figure out if my answers can be positive or negative before I do my multiplying so I don't forget about the sign later. A negative times a negative is always positive. Remember, bad things happening to bad people is good. 1 times 2 is 2, and 1 times 3 is 3. Now it's real easy to just flip the second and multiply, but I want to take a second to show you where that comes from or why that works. So if we go back to this first example of 1/3 divided by 1/2, if I were to write it this way, if I have a fraction, as long as I multiply the numerator and the denominator by the same thing, I end up with an equivalent fraction. So if I take both the numerator and denominator and multiply it by 2/1, I'll end up with a 1 on the bottom because 1/2 times 2/1, these are reciprocals. You'll end up with 1. And on the top, in the numerator, I'll end up with 2/3. 2/3 over 1 is just 2/3, which is what we had here for our answer. And also look right here. This piece right here is our same work from right here. You keep the first fraction the same, change to multiplication, and you flip the second.